Sometime around the year 500 in what is now Syria, a Christian monk sat down to write a book. Nobody knows his real name. What we know is this: when he finished, he put a different name on the cover. He signed it Dionysius the Areopagite. That name is in the Bible. Acts 17. Dionysius was a real man, a member of the Athenian Council, who heard Paul preach about the unknown God and converted on the spot. So when this anonymous monk, 500 years later, put that name on his manuscript, what he was claiming was huge. He was saying, "This is from the very first generation of Christians. This is an apostolic document. This is what the apostles' own student believed. It worked." The book was accepted as authentic for almost 1,000 years. It shaped how Christians thought about God, about icons, about the bread and wine of the Mass. And here is the thing nobody told you. The philosophical machinery inside that book, the thinking that lets a piece of bread become God in the Catholic Mass, was developed by pagan philosophers who would have been horrified to know where it ended up. Stick with me, because this is not a debunking story. The truth is stranger than that. The monk wrote 4 short books and 10 letters. We call the whole collection the Dionysian Corpus. The 4 books cover the orders of angels, the structure of the church, the names we give to God, and what scholars call mystical theology, which is a fancy phrase for how we know God when language fails. For roughly 1,000 years, every serious Christian thinker in both East and West treated these books as nearly apostolic. Thomas Aquinas, who is the architect of medieval Catholic theology, quotes Dionysius about 1,700 times. The Eastern Orthodox world built its theology of icons and its mysticism on him. He is everywhere. Then, in 1457, an Italian humanist named Lorenzo Valla, who had a habit of catching forged documents, said it out loud. He said the books quote a Christian writer from the 400s. The real Dionysius lived in the 1st century, so whoever wrote these books, it was not him. The dating doesn't work. That was the first crack. It took another 4 centuries for the whole picture to come into focus. In 1895, 2 German scholars, Koch and Stiglmaier, working independently, found the smoking gun. They identified specific passages in the Dionysian books that are almost line for line lifted from a pagan Greek philosopher named Proclus, who taught in Athens in the 400s. Same arguments, same examples, same phrasing. The forger was working with a pagan textbook open in front of him. So who was this unknown monk? Modern scholars like Andrew Louth and Paul Roram think he was probably a Syrian Christian, writing somewhere between 485 and 520. He almost certainly studied at one of the late pagan philosophy schools, probably the one in Athens, before becoming a monk. He knew his Proclus cold, and here is where it gets interesting. To understand what this monk was doing, you have to understand what he borrowed. The late Greek philosophers, the ones we call Neoplatonists, had a particular way of thinking about how the divine reaches the world. The picture goes like this. There is a perfect, simple, beyond words one at the top. The one overflows. The overflow is everything else, in layers. The world of ideas, then souls, then bodies. Everything came out from the one, and everything is trying to climb back up to the one. Procession out, return back. That is the basic shape. Now here is the strange move. 2 of these philosophers, Iamblichus and Proclus, argued that thinking your way up was not enough. The climb back to the one needed something more than philosophy. It needed ritual. Specifically, it needed sacred objects, sacred symbols, sacred actions that did not just represent the divine, but actually participated in it. A symbol the gods themselves had given. The Greek word for this is theurgy, which is a $10 term for getting the gods to show up. The scholar Gregory Shaw has spent his career on this stuff, and he calls these participated symbols the receptacles of the divine. The divine actually lands in them. Stop and feel that for a second. This is not metaphor. The pagan philosopher Iamblichus was teaching in the 300s that a piece of carved stone or a spoken phrase, if the gods had given it, could actually contain the god. The thing is not a picture of the god. It is where the god really is. Now look at what the unknown monk does with this. In his book on what he calls the ecclesiastical hierarchy, the monk walks through the sacraments. When he gets to the Eucharist, the bread and wine, he uses Proclus's vocabulary almost exactly. The bread is the symbolon, the participated symbol. It is not a sign that points at Christ. It is the receptacle where Christ actually arrives. The Greek philosophical machinery for theurgy, for the symbol that contains the god, gets quietly slid under the Christian Mass. 150 years later, the same machinery gets pulled out again. The Byzantine emperor has banned religious images. He says icons are idols. A Syrian-born monk named John of Damascus, writing around 730, picks up the Dionysian apparatus and uses it to defend icons. His argument runs, an icon is not the same thing as an idol, because an idol pretends to be the god, while a Christian icon, properly made, is a participated image. The grace of the prototype really lands in it. Same Iamblichian move, different content. A century later, a monk named Theodore the Studite refines the argument. By 787, at the Second Council of Nicaea, the icon defenders win. The Church declares that the honor paid to an image passes to the prototype. That ruling is still in force in the Eastern Church today, and it is doing pagan philosophical work whether anyone in the council chamber knew it or not. Two of the most distinctive things about historical Christianity, the doctrine of real presence in the bread and wine, and the theology of the icon, run on philosophical hardware that was built by pagans who never met Christ. This is the place where it gets tempting to say something dramatic. See, it's all the same underneath. It's all pagan, really. I'm not going to say that because it isn't true. And the scholar Walter Hanegraaff has spent a lot of ink showing exactly why this kind of flattening is bad history. The Christian writers did not just photocopy Proclus. They transformed him. Watch what changes. In Proclus, the one at the top is monadic, simple, alone. In the monk's book and everything that comes after him, the one is a trinity, Father, Son, and Spirit, not a featureless point. That single move changes the entire machine, because now the overflow is not impersonal emanation, it is personal love. In Proclus, the climb back to the one happens through carefully designed rituals using carefully made symbols. In the Christian version, the climb happens through one specific historical body. The Word became flesh once in Galilee. The bread is participated symbol because of that specific historical event, not because of any inherent property of bread. Take the incarnation away and the whole sacramental argument collapses. And in Proclus, the world emanates eternally from the One. In Christian Neoplatonism, the world is created from nothing by a free decision. Those two pictures look almost identical at the surface, and they are doing completely different metaphysical work underneath. So the right thing to say is the more interesting thing. The philosophical reasoning that defends the Eucharist and the icon does have pagan ancestors. Specific, traceable, named ancestors. And the Christian writers who used that reasoning rewired it, hard, around three things the pagans did not believe: the Trinity, the Incarnation, and creation from nothing. Both things are true. The bones are pagan. The animal walking around on them is not. So the next time you stand in a Catholic Mass and watch the bread lifted up, or you walk into an Eastern church and see a wall of icons looking back at you, here is what is happening. You are inside an argument that an unknown Syrian monk made around the year 500, using the philosophical tools of pagan teachers he had studied with as a student, on behalf of a Christian story they would not have recognized. 3 traditions fused in one room, still doing their work 1500 years later. If this lane interests you, the Western and Eastern esoteric traditions read closely against their own sources. Subscribe for the next one.